I wasn't born cold. I used to care, deeply. I used to see the good in everyone, even when it was buried under lies and shadows. I thought if I loved harder, if I stayed kind, the world would mirror that back to me. But it didn't. It took that warmth and twisted it, used it, drained it until there was nothing left but silence. The kind of silence that follows betrayal. The kind that teaches you no one is coming to save you. People say I changed, that I became distant, emotionless. What they don't understand is that coldness isn't born. It's built, one disappointment at a time, one heartbreak after another. I didn't choose to be this way. Life chose it for me, and I adapted, because sometimes survival looks like silence and strength, disguised as ice. People love to call you emotionless when you stop showing what they destroyed. They see your silence and mistake it for arrogance. They see your calm and call it apathy. But being cold is not about being heartless. It is about survival. It is about realizing that giving too much of yourself to people who never deserved it only leaves you empty. When you have been burned enough times, you stop offering fire to those who only want to watch you fall apart. Coldness is not cruelty, it is protection. It is what happens when a kind heart gets tired of bleeding for people who never once offered a bandage in return. The truth is, no one starts out guarded. You begin soft. You believe in promises. You think love can fix everything. You open your heart because you believe everyone feels the way you do. But life teaches you lessons that warmth alone cannot handle. Pain enters quietly, then teaches you boundaries. Betrayal sharpens your mind. Disappointment hardens your skin. And before you realize it, the open door inside you starts to close. Not out of hatred, but out of wisdom. Coldness becomes your armor. It becomes the space between your peace and their chaos. It is not a wall built from anger, but from experience. You start to understand that not everyone deserves your energy, your love, or your forgiveness. You no longer chase understanding from people who only ever offered confusion. You stop seeking validation from those who never saw your worth. What the world calls cold is often the purest form of self-respect. There was a time when I believed the world was simple, when kindness felt like a language everyone understood. I remember waking up each day with a sense of lightness, believing that if I treated people with honesty and love, they would do the same. I used to look for the good in everyone, even when it hid behind anger or pride. I believed every broken person just needed someone to believe in them, someone to show them that love still existed. I was that person. I gave, I trusted, I forgave. I carried hope like it was armor, never realizing how easily it could be pierced. Back then I saw beauty in small things, a smile, a promise, a simple act of care. I believed that people meant what they said, that loyalty was real, that hearts were sincere. I thought the world rewarded those who stayed kind, even when it was hard. I thought being soft was strength. There was warmth in the way I looked at life, a light in my chest that never seemed to fade. I gave people my time, my patience, my faith. I believed that helping others was the highest purpose a person could have. But life has a way of teaching lessons in silence. The first cracks began small. A friend who stopped showing up, a promise that was never kept, a lie that disguised itself as care. It felt confusing at first, almost impossible to accept. I kept telling myself it was just a mistake, that people slip up, that love can fix what is broken. I didn't want to believe that the world could be unkind on purpose, but it was. Slowly I started to realize that some people take advantage of soft hearts because they can. They see kindness as weakness and compassion as something to exploit. The laughter that once came easily began to fade. I still tried to see the good, but it became harder each time. Each betrayal, each disappointment dimmed that inner light a little more. I began to question myself, wondering if I was the problem for caring too much. The warmth that once defined me started to feel like a liability. I was still kind, but now that kindness carried scars. I was still open, but now I hesitated before trusting. That was the beginning of the change. Not a single moment, but a slow, quiet realization that not everyone deserves the version of me that believes too easily. There comes a point when everything inside you begins to crack. It does not happen all at once. It happens in moments that seem small at first. The unanswered message, the sudden silence, the promises that start to fade into excuses. You tell yourself it is nothing, that people are busy, that love and loyalty still mean something. But deep down, you start to feel the shift. You start to notice how your kindness is taken for granted, how your loyalty is met with indifference, how your care is used until it no longer benefits them. You give, you trust, you believe, and they break it anyway. The breaking point is not a single explosion of pain. It is a quiet erosion of the soul. It is when you realize that the ones you defended were the ones who tore you down behind closed doors. It is when you learn that the people who promised to stay only loved you when it was easy. You start to see the pattern. The ones who smile the most are often the ones holding the knife. The ones who speak of loyalty are often the first to disappear when you need them. And the ones you thought would protect your heart are the very reason it stopped feeling safe. You try to hold on. You tell yourself to stay soft. You tell yourself to keep believing that not everyone is the same. But every time you open your heart, another piece of it is taken. Every time you forgive, the cycle repeats. You start to realize that your kindness is being used as currency. People take what they need from it and leave you empty. The more you give, the less you have left, until one day you wake up and feel nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. That is when you understand that you have reached your limit. You begin to question everything. Why did they hurt you when all you did was care? Why did they leave when all you did was stay? Why did love feel like a punishment instead of peace? These questions echo in your mind until they lose meaning. You stop expecting answers because none of them would fix what was broken anyway. You realize that some people destroy you simply because they can, because they see the light in you that they lost long ago. And breaking you makes them feel powerful, even if only for a moment. That is when the shift happens. The softness starts to turn into steel. The warmth that once defined you begins to cool. You stop chasing people who keep walking away. You stop explaining your worth to those who never cared to understand it. You stop fighting for connections that are built on lies. You learn to let the silence speak for you. It hurts, but it also frees you. Pain becomes your teacher. Betrayal becomes your clarity. Each wound hardens what is left, until the person who once gave endlessly now gives carefully, selectively, almost cautiously. The breaking point is not just where you fall apart. It is where you start to rebuild, piece by piece, into someone stronger, wiser, and less willing to be destroyed again. They called me cold because I stopped explaining myself, because I stopped chasing, because I learned that peace costs distance, and I was finally willing to pay it. The pain that once consumed me began to shape me into something different. I stopped trying to fix everything and everyone. I stopped expecting people to care the way I did. The silence that used to feel heavy started to feel safe. It became a shield, a place where I could hear my own thoughts without the noise of broken promises or false affection. I realized that my peace was not something to be sacrificed for anyone's comfort. The rebuilding did not happen overnight. It started with small choices, saying no, walking away, letting go without the need to prove a point. I began to understand that boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you, but lines drawn to protect what is sacred. I learned that detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of clarity. It means caring without clinging, loving without losing yourself, and observing without absorbing every emotion that enters the room. I stopped trying to control outcomes and started focusing on my response to them. That was real strength, not loud, not aggressive, but quiet and unshakable. There was power in stillness. I used to think power meant being in control of everything. Now I know it means being in control of yourself. No matter what they say, no matter how they act, your peace remains yours. I began to see how much energy I had wasted trying to explain myself to people who had already decided not to understand me. So I stopped. I stopped defending my choices. I stopped proving my worth. The right people never need convincing, and the wrong ones will never see your value, no matter how clearly you show it. With time, the coldness that once felt like loneliness turned into clarity. I started to see people for who they were, not who I wanted them to be. I no longer mistook attachment for love or attention for care. I could finally tell the difference between those who showed up out of loyalty and those who stayed out of convenience. I stopped chasing temporary people and started attracting peace. The more I pulled back, the more I began to heal. The world teaches you that being cold means being heartless. But I learned that real coldness is not the absence of love. It is the refusal to waste it. Anger used to drive me, but now I let calmness lead. I no longer react to everything that hurts me. I no longer give energy to every insult or betrayal. The best revenge is not proving them wrong. It is living so well that they cannot touch your peace. I realize that not every battle deserves my attention. Some people will never apologize, and that is fine. I do not need closure to move on. I only need self-control. Silence became my greatest weapon. Distance became my protection. When you stop reacting, you take back your power. When you stop chasing, you allow what is meant for you to stay. This transformation was not about becoming heartless. It was about becoming focused. I started choosing my battles carefully, speaking less but meaning more, giving less but giving better. I understood that not every loss is a tragedy. Sometimes losing people means finding yourself. Coldness became awareness. It became freedom. It was no longer about revenge or bitterness. It was about peace and discipline. It meant understanding that you cannot pour love into people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It meant realizing that protecting your heart does not make you unkind. It makes you wise. Now, when people call me cold, I take it as a compliment. It means I have mastered the art of control. It means I no longer beg for what should come naturally. It means I have learned to walk away without anger, to love without attachment, and to care without losing myself. I do not need to react to be powerful. I do not need to speak to be heard. The silence says enough. Coldness, to me, is not emptiness. It is strength in its purest form. It is knowing that I no longer have to fight to be seen. I simply exist in peace. And that is more powerful than anything I could ever say. You learn that closure is a myth, that not everyone deserves your kindness twice, that you can love people quietly, from a distance, and still move on. Life teaches you that not every connection is meant to last, and not every apology deserves acceptance. Some endings do not come with explanations. Some people leave, not because of what you did, but because of who they are. It takes time to understand that their absence is not your loss. It is your liberation. You stop looking for reasons and start accepting reality. Peace becomes more valuable than answers. You realize that you cannot save everyone. You can pour your love into someone and still watch them drown in their own chaos. You can give advice, patience, and forgiveness, but you cannot force people to change. Everyone must face their own reflection and decide who they want to be. Trying to fix people only breaks you. You start to see that your responsibility ends where their effort begins. Letting go is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is understanding that you cannot lose yourself while trying to hold on to someone who does not want to be held. Peace becomes your priority. You stop chasing people who do not value your presence. You stop explaining your choices to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Silence replaces arguments. Distance replaces drama. You learn that not everything needs a reaction. Not every insult deserves a response. The more you stay quiet, the more powerful you become. Silence speaks for you when words would only waste your energy. It shows strength, not weakness. Sometimes walking away is the loudest statement you can make. There comes a moment when losing your emotions does not feel like emptiness anymore. It feels like freedom. You stop feeling the need to react to every storm. You stop being controlled by the things that once hurt you. When your emotions settle, you begin to see life with clarity instead of chaos. You find strength in stillness. You start protecting your peace with the same energy you once used to chase love. You learn that self-control is the highest form of power, and emotional detachment is not coldness, it is wisdom. In time, you begin to appreciate solitude. You learn that being alone is not the same as being lonely. You discover parts of yourself you had forgotten. You realize that peace is not something you find in other people. It is something you create within yourself. You no longer fear losing anyone because you no longer depend on them for your happiness. That is when you truly find yourself. Life teaches you that survival sometimes looks like stillness, that growth often requires distance, and that healing is not always warm. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and strong. You stop needing to prove your worth and start living it. You understand that everything and everyone that leaves creates space for something better. In the end, you stop blaming life for making you cold and start thanking it for teaching you how to be strong. I used to be fueled by emotion. Now I am fueled by focus. I no longer run after people or validation. I chase peace, purpose, and progress. The version of me that once needed to be understood has been replaced by someone who is content in silence. I do not react to everything that moves around me. I do not let the noise of others disturb the calm I built. What once broke me has now become the foundation of my strength. I learned to stop taking everything personally, to stop giving energy to things that do not deserve a response. That is how peace became my power. This is the rebirth. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, controlled, and deliberate. I do not crave attention. I crave direction. My focus is no longer scattered between people who come and go. It is centered on my growth, my peace, and my purpose. I started seeing my past not as a chain, but as a lesson. Every betrayal taught me to be sharper. Every heartbreak taught me to be wiser. Every silence taught me to listen to myself. I realized that being unbothered is not about not caring. It is about caring selectively. It is about choosing peace every single time, no matter the situation. Now I move differently. I speak less, but my words carry weight. I act slower, but every move has intention. I am no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. The calm I carry makes people wonder how I do it. The answer is simple. I stopped letting the world control me. I stopped letting emotions rule me. I stopped seeking warmth from people who only knew how to take. I created my own. This is not bitterness. This is mastery. This is control. I am no longer broken. I am balanced. I am no longer cold. I am composed. Pain turned into wisdom. Silence turned into strength. Detachment turned into freedom. This is the essence of phantom focus. The point where emotion meets discipline, where chaos turns into clarity, and where a wounded heart transforms into something unstoppable. I am no longer who I was, and I am grateful for that. The coldness was never the end. It was the beginning of my rebirth. I wasn't born cold. Life taught me to be. It taught me through silence, through pain, through every moment I was forced to rebuild myself from the pieces others left behind. I used to think being strong meant staying warm no matter how many times I got burned. Now I know that strength is choosing peace, even when the world tries to pull you back into chaos. The coldness people see in me is not emptiness. It is focus. It is control. It is the result of surviving everything that was meant to destroy me. I learned that I no longer need to explain who I am or defend how I feel. The world will always misunderstand quiet strength because it cannot control it. I stopped trying to be understood and started being real. I stopped proving my heart and started protecting it. That is when life began to feel lighter. I walked through the same fire that once consumed me, but now it no longer burns. It only reminds me of how far I have come. So no, I wasn't born cold. The world simply taught me how to stop burning myself to keep others warm. I am not heartless. I am healed. I am not detached. I am disciplined. The same pain that once broke me now fuels my purpose. The same silence that once felt heavy now feels powerful. I have become untouchable in my calm, unstoppable in my focus, and unbreakable in my peace. This is phantom focus, where pain turns into power and silence becomes strength.